Well, it's always a pleasure and honor. Hall of Fame coach Grant Teaff, former Baylor head football coach, executive director, of course, for many years of the AFCA as well, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio. It's great to talk to you again. I flash back, look back at the box score, 1983, Baylor, I think 40, Brigham Young 36, and I've heard all about the game. When I bring up Brigham Young and Baylor, what do you remember?
Oh, my gosh, action. I think of action on the football field. I think of my very, very close friend, Lavelle Edwards. He and his wife, Patty, were two of Donnell and my closest friends in the coaching world. And so I think of him. He was way ahead of his time in throwing the football. He was a master at that, and I learned a lot from him. And we were very, very close friends. And Patty, we still have communications with her.
So you guys played in back-to-back years, and of course non-conference schedules, and you were never shied away from playing unbelievable teams, and you did that throughout your career.
We played the who's who of the top 10, we like to say.
Yeah, you did, and you won a lot, and you beat some of those teams, and great memories. And I remember the stories, whether it's Michigan or Florida State or whoever it was, Nebraska, and you played them. And Brigham Young, of course, during that time, they were rolling. And
oh yeah,
the 83-84. Did you reach out to Lavelle? Was that one of those things where you guys said, "Hey, let's play each other"? How simple, or was it simple back in those days?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. We were very, very close friends with Donnell and I, with he and Patty. Prior to that, we were both Donnell and I and Patty and he were on the Nike advisory board. And so it was kind of a perk deal, and we traveled all over the world. And every summer we'd go for 2 or 3 weeks and play golf in the most amazing places across the world. And so we became really, really close friends with Patty and Donnell and of course, Coach and I.
Well, so you played at 83 and 84, and they won the national title in 84. They were building towards that, and we know the history of quarterbacks, whether Jim McMahon, Gifford Nielsen, and many others along the way. Virgil Carter's an old-school name. We had Ty Detmer on Tuesday. He won the Heisman Trophy. They just had a kid drafted early by the Jets and Zach Wilson. But you happened to play against Brigham Young when they had some guy named Steve Young at quarterback, and it was a shootout, wasn't it?
Oh my, it was, and it was such an amazing series because Lavelle and I were such close friends, and we weren't in the same conference. But it was a shootout every year, and we, in the summers, we traveled together and we compared notes and talked about offense, so we really didn't have any secrets from each other, but it was the Steve Youngs and our athletes that made those games so great.
So he went nuts in that game. He had a bunch of yards passing. He had a bunch of yards rushing. You won the game 40-36.
Yeah.
But sometimes the story is not just the game. You have a story about after the game because he came, charging across the field?
Yeah. Yeah, when the game's over, normally 99.9% you meet the opposing coach whom you're know well or good friends with, as I did with Lavelle, and so the game's over, and it was a crescendo of a game, and so I'm going across the field to meet Lavelle, and I see out of the corner of my eye, I see this movement, and I look, and it's Steve Young, and he is running as hard as he can directly to me. So So, I'm an old linebacker, so I just turned and kind of squared my feet up. I thought he was fixing to try to level me, and I was going to try to level him. And he came running up to me and planted his feet, and he said, "Coach Teaff, wasn't that the greatest game you've ever been involved in?" And I said, "Steve, it was." But that's the kind of young man he was. I know his heart was torn out because he had played such a great game, and we beat them. And the first thing he did was he beeline to me to congratulate us for the victory. But that's kind of person he was, great player.
351 yards passing, 1 touchdown, ran for 113 and scored twice. You did get to him, though.
Yeah.
You sacked him 3 times, tried to contain him. Was he one of those that you want to put pressure on him, but you have to be careful if you do, because if he gets loose, he can hurt you as much getting out of the pocket?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a great analysis of him. And folks like him, they individually just put so much pressure on your defense, and he was so highly respected by his teammates that they just played so hard for him as well as for Lavelle and BYU itself.
And you had that rotation between Tom Mickey, Cody Carlson. You had 317 yards, or some nearly 300 yards rushing, led by Alfred Anderson, who scored the game-winning touchdown. Wow.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable game, Smoak. I hadn't thought much about it in a long time, but the memories are flowing back, and just the greatness of the game meant so much to me and Lavelle, is that, it wasn't some sloppy affair. It wasn't a push and pull. It was a football game at its best. And we wouldn't have expected anything less, either one of us.
Well, you got him that game, but the next year was the year they won the national title.
Yeah.
I think Robbie Bosco might have been their quarterback, and they got you pretty good, I guess, up in Provo. You remember much how good that team was?
Well, they were pretty good. They put a whipping on us, and we were sort of starting over again, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We had a really great team, and it graduated a lot of folks, and so we were kind of starting over again, and they sort of retained, and they were darn good that year. They were really good, I would say. You
have, in all your time of how long you were in college football, Grant Teaff, the Hall of Fame coach, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio. You've seen it all, and of course the landscape in college football continues to change, even most recently in late July with Texas and Oklahoma and their eventual move to the SEC. How important and how critical do you think the Big 12 looked bad? I mean, it looked like it could fall apart yet again, that they were able to grab somebody like Brigham Young, who's a powerful independent program.
Oh my, yeah. Well, it's a huge step and a huge thing, not only for our program over here, our schools, but it's a great thing for BYU, because it's going to give them the national exposure that it's sometimes hard to get where they play over there, from the East to the national exposure. So they're going to be right in the thick of some of the best football in America.
All right, one more question, if you don't mind. David Randa, last year, 2-7. Baylor seems like the football program always finds a way of resiliency no matter what they face. And now, they've got work to do. But 5-1, what have you seen, what he's done this year?
Well, it's not a surprise to me, because I watched him last year, and while they were suffering defeats, but yet building a program that could succeed on this level, and I just am very impressed with him. He's got an excellent coaching staff, and they're gonna surprise some people, and some people probably won't be surprised by what they're going to do this year. But I think they're going to be very, very good.
How you been? You enjoy going and watching those games from your suite with the family, and is just kind of enjoying Baylor?
Oh my, yes, and getting to see the teams that Baylor play. It's a great time of life for us and for our family, and so we just pull for Baylor and hope that they can have a great year this year, because we really, really like the coaches out there.
You know what? I have to bring this up because Lane told me this. You finally learned how to listen to us, didn't you, on the app?
Oh, yeah. You rascal.
you got us, and you were the first person I called back in March of 2020 when things changed, and I'll never forget. You kind of gave me one of those pep talks and said we're going to make it, and you were huge in helping us get to where we were and obviously where we are today. We appreciate you always, Coach.
Well, I tell you what, it's been a pleasure to have you as a friend and to see what you do for sports here in Central Texas and even nationwide. So we love you and appreciate you, Smoak.
Thank you, Coach. That's the Hall of Famer, Grant Teaff, Sikkim 365 Radio.
We will hear from Max Olson. He and Mitch Sherman wrote a part of the series TheAthletic.com is doing